Hi, I'm Dr. Wagner with Northwest Chiropractic and Rehab, and today we're going to talk about an abnormal postural distortion known as anterior pelvic tilt. Now, this is an extremely common postural distortion that we see due to the fact that so many of us have a sit-down job, whether we're working in front of the computer, we're students in school doing a lot of studying. Because what we're doing is when we essentially sit down, it causes all of these muscles, primarily these hip flexor muscles, to shorten down. So when we go into this standing position, they stay in that contracted state and cause a great number of other problems. So this is what we're looking at here with a normal spine. Okay, so we've got the vertebra of the lower back, we've got the sacrum, and we've got the pelvis. And you can see for the most part, we can touch the very bottom of that last vertebra here to the very top one. Okay, should all be in this up stacked position here. That way the weight can be distributed evenly. Now this, on the other hand, is what a normal or an abnormal anterior pelvic tilt will look like. Okay, as you know, I drew that same line through here, drew it straight up, and you can see that there's quite a bit of anterior shift right through here globally. Okay. On top of that, we're seeing that the pelvis is rocked forward, hence anterior pelvic tilt. Okay? Now, this can be caused by a number of different things, and not just to be blaming the hip flexors and the quads themselves. Because what happens is our muscles, they tend to work in groups. Think about it like this. When you flex your arm, the bicep muscle will contract, the tricep will lengthen. We have those kind of groupings all throughout our bodies. So on top of having these tight quad muscles, these tight hip flexors right through here, what will happen is their counterparts, okay, which we're seeing here are the erector spinae. Those are those big strong muscles in the lower back will also begin to tighten up right through here. Okay, and on the front side, these lower abdomen muscles are really important because when they tighten up, they actually pull on the upper portion of that pelvis and help rock that backwards. Well, these get real stretched out and real lengthened. Okay, and we see a lot of the same patterns going on with the glute muscles because the quads will actually become overactive. The glutes will disengage. Okay, because when we have an area of one weakness in one part of the body, the opposite will have to take up some of that slack and start tightening up and strengthening there. So we have this crude disalignment of the spine, and then we have all of this going on. Now the last group of muscles that will weaken or shut down are the hamstrings, because they attach at the very bottom of the pelvic area right through here, and they will ride and stretch out. Again, further emphasizing that. So besides just lower back pain, you can see how when we change the position of one area of the spine, how it can have a huge effect. Because the other thing to keep in mind is many of the hip flexors or the quads will actually attach on the inside portion of the leg here. And what that will do is when they shorten, it causes internal rotation of the femur, which will put torque on the knee, which will again put torque on that lower leg and cause subtalar misalignment of the foot, causing those feet to flatten out, causing a lot of issues with plantar fasciitis, among other type of issues that we see real commonly with runners. So we can see how we can basically check mark a large part of some of the more common problems that I see here in the office due to the fact that we have this abnormal alignment through here. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is what kind of things can you do at home to help combat that and get this pelvis to start rocking posterior or backwards. Okay, so we can just basically look at these things here. We have the weak abs, glutes, and hamstrings, and we have the over-dominant quads, adductor muscles, and the erector spinae. So we're going to start off by doing some mobility exercises. Some of these you've already seen in previous films, but we're going to go over those again. Probably one of the simpler exercises or stretches that we're going to be able to do is just a very basic knee to the ground. In yoga, they call this one the lizard pose. Sometimes you'll hear it called the Spider-Man pose. So what we're doing is just we're locking that knee down into the ground and we're rocking that hip backwards. What that's going to do is it's going to force the hips to open up and really put a good stretch right in through here. Okay, you can add one additional thing by bringing your hands up overhead, which is going to help stretch out some of the psoas muscles, which is part of the hip flexors as well, as they attach all the way down in through the hip. So what I usually recommend for this particular stretch is we're trying to gauge and create a length of time of about 2 minutes. So if you get in this position and those hip flexors are just so tight, you have to break that up. By all means, break those up, but we're trying to work our way where we're building up to a solid 2 minutes on each one of those legs there. Okay? By far and above, you probably know if you've seen my other videos, the couch stretch is my favorite stretch because it really puts a total flexion in the knee, which will allow you to get a better pull on those hip flexors. Okay, we call this one the couch stretch because a lot of times people are going to want to do this one in front of the couch where they have something to keep their mind off of the stretch itself. So with this particular exercise, we're just going to bring that knee down to the ground, and we want to get that as close to that surface as we can, which will allow us to really open that hip up. Okay, so we got the knee bent, the hip flexor open up, and then we can even take it a little bit further by just rocking that hip forward. Okay. Again, we're going to hold that one for about 2 to 3 minutes and just kind of working our way up through there. We'll want to do that one on each side. Now, to work on those adductors, okay, there's nothing real special about this particular stretch. We're just going to do a simple lateral stretch here, okay? And you really don't have to go a great distance down. You don't have to go all the way down to the ground, because when you get to that point, when you start to feel that groin really start to pull, that's really as far as you probably will need to go, okay? And again, you're going to want to do those on both sides and continue to work with that. Now, the erector spinae we're just going to leave alone because a large part of the erector spinae is they're just simply compensating for the tightened quads and adductors. And as we start to get some flexibility and mobility back through there, we're going to start to notice that these muscles start to back off. So let's move into some of the strengthening, okay? Glutes, my favorite exercise for the glutes is going to be the hip bridge, because we're going to be attacking the glutes as well as the hamstrings at the same time. So for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to just lay flat on the ground. And what we're going to be trying to achieve is to keep that knee just at a slight bend right through there. And what we're going to be achieving is by raising the hips up off the ground. So this is not a speed thing, so just take your time with this one. We're just going to slowly raise those hips up. As we start getting higher and higher, I really want you to start pushing those butt cheeks together, okay? And you're going to hold this for about a 5-second hold at the very top. And then we're going to go take that same amount of time and go back down, okay? So you're going to feel both your hamstrings as well as your glutes activate right through here. This particular exercise, I usually do a couple of sets, 2 sets of about 20, and do that one about twice a day. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about that. One other exercise that we can really target those hamstrings with is called the good morning. Okay, you can do this one with your own body weight, but if you can, put a little bit of weight on there so you can help load up those hamstrings a bit. So I usually use some kind of a bar as like you might find at a gym. Okay, you'll just set that bar there. And really you don't need a whole lot of weight. Sometimes just doing the bar is enough. You might throw about 10 or 15 pounds on there just to get a little bit of weight. So we're going to go just outside of what our normal hip stance would be. And then what we're going to do is we're going to try to engage that lower core right through here, especially tighten up that core. So take just a nice little deep breath, because remember, we have those lower abs are real weak at this point. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to engage those. So we're going to keep a slight bend at the knee and go forward right through there. Okay, and that's about as far as we need to go. We're going to go back up. So this is going to be a more high volume, low volume, high repetition right through there. I usually recommend doing about 3 sets of 10 on these a couple of times a day if you can get a chance to do that. Okay, the last one is going to be for the abs. Okay, the problem with most people, they think, well, I can just do some sit-ups. Well, the problem with that is mostly we're targeting those upper abs. We really want to try to focus on those lower ones because that's the ones that are going to be attaching to the pelvis. Okay, for this one, you can find just a nice stable surface like a table, a bench, whatever the case may be. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay flat on our back, okay, and we'll just support ourselves. And so we're going to raise our legs up and back down. And raise those legs back up. Because what you're doing with this one is you're going to be targeting those hips or the abs, as well as activate some of your glutes in that one as well. So we're going to want to keep those at more of a higher rep scheme, doing something along the lines of 15, 20 reps at a time. If you have to feel like you have to break those up, by all means do so. So those are going to be the exercises that we're going to be targeting to both strengthen some of those weaker areas as well as mobilize and lengthen some of those over-dominant areas. Keep up with us and follow us on Facebook. And if you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call.